He always does that. All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Conversations with Alena. And yes, it is Conversations with Alena now. Because of the change, Oprah won the rights to Aha Moments term. So because we want to keep this program going, we have changed it to Conversations with Alena. But it's still the same podcast. But, okay, let's start with our quote. And I love this quote. It is, "And the day came when the risk to remain tight in the bud was more painful than the risk it took to blossom." And correct me if I'm pronouncing it wrong, Anais Nin.
Correct.
Cool. And I want to read more. I guess she wrote during the 1970s. And I do not know this author very well, but I really am interested in learning more about her. And that brings me to our guest. Her name is Lori Rose, and she is a phenomenal person. You will so enjoy the show. I'm going to tell you a little bit about her. She serves as an executive director of Fort Wayne Trails, co-founder of Salsa Loca Fort Wayne. And by the way, I went to a salsa class, and it was so much fun. And then in 2010, she initiated 1 Billion Rising for Fort Wayne. It's part of a global movement to end violence against women and girls. Well, no, that was in 2012, and that is an awesome mission. She also loves teaching Zumba fitness and dance lessons. Lori has a personal mission to heal and empower and ignite others through movement and education. And I hope we get to touch on that today because that's very fascinating. She has spoken on stages from TEDx to college campuses and has won awards, including the Greater Fort Wayne Business Weekly 40 Under 40 Award, Indiana State Trial Advocacy Award, and YWCA Hope Award for Domestic Violence Prevention and Intervention. So whether she is hosting flash mobs or attempting to learn the flying trapeze, which I just love, she strives to celebrate people and nature and have a good laugh at least once a day, which is a very good goal. And with that, hi.
Hi. Thanks so much for having me here.
Oh, I am so excited to have you here. Okay. Now, Lori, I want to go back to this because I really love this quote. Because it's one of the reasons why it's one of the three, I say, that get people to take action to break free of any prison they're in. Mm-hmm. And it was actually my way of getting out of my prison. So, of course, I love this quote. So I want to talk about what it means to you, though, not what it talks about to me. Okay? So tell me why you chose this quote and why you kind of follow it.
I think I first saw this quote in a newsletter from the YWCA, and it really struck me and spoke to what the journey that I had been going through.
Oh, me too.
When you asked me to come and talk with you about these aha moments, I was thinking about trying to remember different moments throughout my life, and I really have some fuzzy periods of time. Like I always knew I wanted to fly and I wanted to save the world, and that was kind of my childhood stuff.
That's cool.
And then,
that's cool.
But I was thinking about this sort of gap in time where I couldn't really think of aha moments, and I realized it was because I spent so much time hiding. I spent so much time trying to fit a certain mold, and really I struggled with depression a lot, which I think is really a form of disconnection.
It is. It's a total form of disconnection. Mm-hmm. Now, but don't you find a lot of, well, I don't know if it's everyone. I see a lot of women who have gaps like that where they are trying to conform, and it's usually in what? Oh, I say it starts about 15 and doesn't end until they're maybe 30. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. You know what I mean? We're always trying to fit the mold, fit what other people tell us we have to be. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's hard.
It is, and I come from a wonderful, loving family.
I do too.
And, I think parents work so hard to make sure their children stay alive and do what they're supposed to do. And all these things, they had my best interest in mind.
They do.
But there comes a point where as adults, it's time for us to take charge of our lives.
Exactly.
And, the things that we created, the not good enough, all the things that we created in our childhood, it's time to not
Let go.
blame anybody or
Right.
any of that, but to really unfold and
Right.
take charge. So
Exactly.
I was somewhere around 30 when I started remembering aha moments again.
Cool. Yes.
And I can remember a specific moment when I realized the extent to which I was hiding and just how deeply painful it was. And from there, I really began
What was this
a
aha
journey
moment?
of unfolding.
Yeah.
Well, it was the day I met Tony, actually.
Oh, cool.
It was 2011, right? 2011.
Okay.
And it was at TEDxFortWayne. Wayne. And I was really struggling. I was in kind of a dark place at the time. And I
Okay.
remember I didn't want to go that day because I didn't feel up to being around other people.
Right.
But someone had
Right.
given me a free ticket and I felt like I should go. I felt guilty about not going. So I'll get myself there. So I arrived. I kind of snuck in. I remember distinctly slinking into the back row. And I thought, I'm just going to stay here all day in the dark.
Kind of hide.
Yes.
Yeah.
In the dark with my phone. And I'm just not really up to interacting with anyone.
Right.
And I just remember sitting there and listening to one speaker after another talk about, they were speaking their truth. And at the time I was working with a life coach who would always use that phrase, speaking your truth. And I didn't even know what I was hurting so deeply. I didn't even know what she meant.
Right.
But I just saw these people really exposing their authenticity, their true thoughts. And slowly but surely throughout that day, I started to kind of interact with people. And the energy I was getting back was like, maybe this is okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I remember sitting there and I actually I have my grandmother's wedding ring.
Oh.
And she passed away in 2005.
Oh, wow.
And the ring was it was always to me a reminder of her and her light and my connection to her.
Very cool.
And so sitting in a theater setting, you look at something like that, and there was just all this light reflecting off of this ring, and I felt all this darkness within me, and it just hit me like something. I am sitting here hiding all of this pain, hiding who I am. And, something has to change.
Because
really.
there's so much light out. You started to see that there was so much light out there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And so just slowly but surely throughout that day, I remember meeting Tony Franz in the hallway, and we just started to chat about, things that we're passionate about.
Right,
and,
right.
It was time to go back into the talks, and I was like, God, there's so many people I want to talk to here.
Ah, what a change.
And it
yeah.
was just, it was this unfolding kind of the entire day, this sort of exposure. And from there, though, I had a very long and arduous journey to take.
Can I back you up just a little bit?
Absolutely.
Well, do you think, I always think there's a reason for everything. Number one, getting the free ticket. Going to this place where everybody had light, basically. They were showing their truth, and they have light. They're of the right, what we call the vibration. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Don't you kind of think that was a gift?
Absolutely, I do.
The guidance and and I had a similar. It wasn't as profound as that, but when I there was a time in my life when it was really dark, and I had to take a job, and I worked for CAC, the Citizens Action Coalition, actually. And I took it because I needed money so badly at that time. And I remember it's all young people, and they're all out there. They're trying to make this world a better place. They're trying to make power companies and stuff be able to make it affordable for people who cannot afford it. Okay. But I remember I would get on the van, and I would sit in the very, very back, and I put my dark sunglasses on, and I wanted to hide. So I totally relate with your hiding. But it was the people. They were all feeling good about what they were doing. And they were young and they were telling me. And soon I was seeing the light. So I understand. And I do think it's a gift. I think it's the way of the divine coming in and saying, you can't stay there. We got to show you the way.
Yeah.
But I want to hear more. Now that we've kind of cleared that up for people, that it is a gift. I want to hear more about your aha, what you did with it then. Now that I broke up your whole flow.
No, that's okay. It was a long process. And another quote that I've come across just recently that I'm loving is it's a Buddhist quote. It says, "No mud, no lotus." And it turned out that what I had to do, and Brene Brown is someone who talks about this a lot, I had to trek through the muck. Yes. And it is really interesting. I go back to Tony again because we're sitting in his studio here. But I remember, he and I started working together on some different projects and started talking about our personal lives a bit. And I remember him saying to me, you really need to run at your problems. Like, you look like you're running away. You need to run at your problems.
Mr. Tony.
And,
that's very cool.
I remember him saying that, and I was like, crap, I don't want to do that. That would suck. I don't want to do that.
It does suck. Yeah.
And for some reason that stayed in my head, him saying that. And I, as I took this journey, it was really a 12-month journey. And at the end of it, of that period of time, unfortunately, I realized I had to leave my marriage.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Sometimes that happens. That's where it takes us.
And of course, you don't enter into marriage thinking that you would ever, ever, ever get to that place.
No, you don't want to. No.
But I realized I could not, I couldn't even serve this world. I could not be the person who I feel called to be and be in that form.
Okay.
At the same time.
But it took going through that to become who you are. That journey.
It did. And that's something that, so Brene Brown talks about the muck, and it's something that we don't want to, we just want to like throw a big tarp over it and not deal with it. But what I love, what she says is the point of it is not to like get in and build a house and live there.
Right.
The point is to put on our galoshes and trek through. And that's exactly what I ended up doing. Just one sticky, gooey, nasty step at a time until I reached my way to this other side. And that's where this unfolding, I think, can really happen.
It is where the unfolding happens. And they always, I have always heard that a lot of times for us to understand and to accept new ideas, we have to go through that muck. We have to see what we think is good in life disappear. We have to be kind of at our most difficult times in life. And then our mind opens up and the growth begins.
And I think that's kind of coming back to what we were saying about depression is disconnection. Depression is kind of this empty shell that we live in. And it's like you kind of have to break all of that open to get to this point of truth again.
That's right. And that's why the light is shown to you. It's to break through that depression. And those of us who are, or not, almost everyone, I think everyone, if they give themselves a chance, will see that light and then they can break through. But it takes a little bit. It really does.
It does.
And seeing that it's time for me to wake up, which you did.
I did. I became a very serious student of myself and of others and of the world, and found just the more that I could really connect with myself and understand that, and I got this from one of my coaches. I called it a brigade of coaches at the
Oh,
time.
cool.
It wasn't like
Yeah.
it wasn't like I made the decision and everything was great. It's like you
No.
still have to track through.
You have to track through. Yeah, of course.
But one of my coaches at 4 a.m. at IHOP actually,
Wow.
taught me to be able to say I'm okay.
Very cool.
And I can sit here today and say that with complete solidarity, but
Nice.
that night it took
Not
everything I had to be able to say I'm okay. But we have to
Wow.
start there. And I think I've heard you
Yes.
say this because we can't give others what we don't have.
That's exactly right.
And so I started with me.
You have to start with you.
Mm-hmm. And then was able to build, and this is always a work in progress, but connection
Always.
with self, connection with others. And
Yes.
out of that eventually, and there were more aha moments for sure.
I'm sure.
But 1 Billion Rising was a really important step on my path.
Talk a little bit about that. Yeah.
Gosh,
That's
so
a phenomenal organization.
it really is. And I had been studying a whole lot of issues. I really felt completely blindsided by the whole spectrum of violence and abuse. I mean,
Yes.
I was someone who grew up thinking that affects those people over there. And like I knew it would be bad if a toothless man in a in a white wife beater, they call them, which is a disgusting word. A toothless man in a white tank top came like swinging at me out of the bushes. Like I knew that would be really bad. But
we're not saying all toothless men with white tank tops are horrible people.
No, that was just a particular stereotype that lived in my mind.
Right.
But I had no clue that there were other types of abuse. And one day I sat down and Googled, for instance, emotional abuse. I thought, is that even a word? Am I making this up? Is that a term?
Oh, no.
And I read about it and my mouth fell to the floor.
What did you read? Because there's a lot of people who do not know. Do you remember?
Yeah, I was one of them. I learned that there is that abuse is any pattern that is designed to suppress who you are.
Control.
Yeah, power and control.
Mm-hmm.
Any pattern that makes you feel like less.
Yes.
And so I learned that like the YWCA is an organization, a wonderful organization in town.
Yes.
That I've worked with quite a lot, and they talk about 6 different types of abuse.
Wow.
So commonly, we think about physical abuse, but physical abuse isn't only a punch in the face.
Right.
It's acting out in physical ways. So like physically preventing someone from leaving a room, or smashing objects right past a person or something like that.
Threatening.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And of course sexual
abuse. Yeah.
Which I had a lot to learn about that too.
Yeah.
There's verbal abuse.
Definitely. Yeah. Okay.
There's emotional abuse.
Okay.
And emotional abuse, I think I talk about it a lot when I talk to groups, because it's probably the most insidious and the hardest for us to recognize, because we don't really grow up with this education on
emotional abuse. I really think is the deepest. I do, because if you're touching, how do you reach people? The best way to reach people is through emotions.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So how do you make the firmest impression on people? Is through feelings.
Sure. Yeah.
And when you were talking, I was thinking to myself, okay, words, how is that different than emotional? Well, sure, you don't even have to talk to give off an emotion. If you have somebody who's when you think you said a bad thing, or if you think you've triggered it, I love that. I've triggered him. I hear that a lot. Or I trigger her. There are some men that are abused too,
yes, absolutely.
And so if you trigger that other person, they will suddenly ignore you. That is an emotional abuse. Mm-hmm. That constant, I cause that kind of thing. You feel that way.
Yeah, making someone else responsible for your emotions.
For their own punishment. Mm-hmm. That's ridiculous. But yes, go ahead. But that's very interesting. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And the other two that are most commonly taught are financial abuse
Yes.
and religious abuse. And
Ooh,
those
talk
kind
a
of
little bit more about that, because I'm not even sure I know about that one.
those really tie back to and they all have that power and control. There's the power and control wheel that
Yes.
commonly describes all of this.
Huh.
But it's using those things as a way to basically just keep someone from being
Them.
from being them.
Keeping them under their thumb.
And all those same themes that we were talking about, making someone else responsible for,
Yes.
your behavior or something. I
Yes.
wouldn't have had to do, I wouldn't have thrown that at you if you hadn't have,
Right. Why did you make me do that to you? Yeah. That's just, a lot of children feel that way, with an abuser, because they will, and the children really feel that as they grow up. And I've seen people grow up with that in their past, and they feel they are responsible for how another person feels all the time. And so they bend their behavior to every person they meet. That's horrid. That's their own prison. They're not even their own selves.
Right.
That's,
Right.
yeah, very interesting.
So I had been studying all of those things, and I also at the same time I also came across sexual assault, which
that's an interesting one too.
it is. So, and somehow, I'm extremely fortunate. I have both of my biological parents are married. They love me very much. I had a wonderful education. I went to college.
Yeah.
I have a career. And I had to Google.
Highly intelligent. Yes.
Well, thank you.
You're welcome. Yes.
I had to Google sexual assault at the age of maybe I was 33.
Well, we're not told.
Because I didn't have a full understanding of
we
it.
don't. We're never told. Yeah.
No. And I was blown away by what I discovered. I had been through something that years. I was newly single and, kind of felt in a fog out there.
Right. Sure. Sure.
And I had an experience in which I later realized I was sexually assaulted by someone I trusted.
Okay. So what did you learn? Can we delve into that a little bit? What did you learn? What is sexual assault? Tell us a little bit more, because I know a lot of people do not know. I know and I'm amazed on how many young women don't know. Even in this day and age, we think we've come so far, and yet they suffer by it daily. There's somebody always suffering by it.
Yeah. This is a really tough thing, and I really didn't realize the extent to which victim blaming, is threaded in our culture and throughout all of our lives. You hear about rape culture and all these things. I mean, when I first started studying these things, I didn't like the word rape, and I thought I'm just not going to touch that one.
Yeah,
I'm not going to talk about it. But then
I'll just erase that.
Right. But then I realized all of these things affect all of us. So I will share. What happened to me was, I had gone out with a friend and a group of his friends, and I had a couple of drinks. I was dancing. I love to dance.
These were friends you totally trusted.
Yeah, they were just a group of people, and we were enjoying the evening. And I will say to you, up and down, I never a single moment sent a signal to this man. Never had a moment of anything, any type of connection with him.
Right.
We were actually staying at the same place that evening.
Okay.
And I recall going back there, and I fell asleep. Okay. And it was cold out. I fell asleep with my coat on, and
because it was cold.
Yes.
Yeah.
Which I still do that.
I know.
It doesn't matter what I'm doing. I go to sleep with my coat on all the time. I'm cold.
As long as it's, you want to be warm. I can't blame you for that. I'm always cold too.
So I recall falling asleep with my coat on, and the next thing I knew, I woke up, in in a fog when you're woken up like that with this person on top of me, basically trying to take my clothes off. And it's really hard to react in a rational way when you're sleeping and all of those things.
Wow.
And so fortunately I was able to stop him eventually.
Good.
But it was the kind of thing where I remember having this moment thinking I cannot physically get him up. He was much larger than me, and I just had this moment of terror, really.
Right, of course. You woke up with someone on top of you. That's awful. You just feel, gosh, you can't sleep. You can't trust even sleeping. You're scared that somebody's going to get on top of you. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
You get that kind of image into your head. It stays with you.
Mm-hmm.
That's not cool. That's totally an assault. I mean, that's
And I didn't know it.
What makes a person think that's okay?
I don't know. I do not know. The next day, I remember him saying to me something like, "I'm a vault. We don't have to tell anyone about that," or something.
Yeah, sure. And he's a vault. He's the one that did it.
And I thought in my
gosh.
head, I had a thought, and you talk about other women. I had a thought in my head that I remembered thinking many times throughout college and other times in my life that was a stupid night of being a girl.
Well, but
and I thought just that was part of the deal.
No. Yeah,
right.
But that's what girls do.
Right.
I know.
And I thought that it was my fault because I had been enjoying an evening with a couple of drinks and dancing with people.
Heaven forbid if you should enjoy an evening.
Right.
Yeah. And that's what women do all the time. They think and we put it on ourselves. It's our fault. Well, and I'm not sure. I mean, I'm not a man, and I don't know if that happens to them too, where, if they're...
I think it does.
I think it would, and they go through the same thing a woman would, putting it on themselves. I shouldn't have been there. I shouldn't have worn that skirt. I shouldn't have worn the big baggy top that somehow showed something, or you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. We blame everything that we do, everything. I shouldn't have laughed so much. I shouldn't have smiled. I shouldn't. They really do blame themselves for every little action, and say that's why it happened to me. And
this is a sticky topic. I know, and I can imagine people thinking like, well, what really was she doing? What was she wearing? All these things. The thing is, 6 months later, I Googled the definition of sexual assault, and it's any sexual advance that is done without the consent of the other person.
That makes sense.
And I thought back to that night, and I thought, wait a minute, I did not ask for that in any way, shape, or form.
Good for you.
I did not invite that. I did not want that. I did not cross a single boundary. I went out. I'm in my 30s. I had a couple of drinks. I like to dance. I was with, someone I had known for years.
Wow. Yeah.
And I had every reason to believe that I was responsibly putting myself in a safe situation.
Right. You did.
And and I thought to myself, and it's funny because it's, part of me sitting here talking to you about this going, oh my God, I'm talking about this, but but I remember thinking to myself, if these are my stories that I'm hiding and afraid to share, what in the hell is everyone else not saying?
That's exactly
what is everyone else? And excuse me for saying
no, that's
words.
all right. That's all right.
But, and that was when I started to talk to other people.
Okay.
And I found that when I share
that
things
was an aha
like
moment,
this,
by the way.
it was.
Yeah.
It was.
Big one.
I found, and this kind of led to how 1 Billion Rising happened.
Okay.
So at that time when I had this realization, I realized what the definition of sexual assault was. I was really down about thinking about all the things that had happened in my life, similar instances that I had always blamed, that I just thought that's just part of being a girl.
Yeah. Isn't that the truth? Yeah.
And I was so upset just thinking, what has everyone gone through and how has it impacted us and how are we going to fix this?
Yes.
And so I thought, who could possibly cheer me up right now? And I thought of Eve Ensler. Have you ever listened to any of her talks or anything?
No, I haven't. Tell me a little bit about her.
So she's most famous initially famous as the playwright who wrote the Vagina Monologues.
Uh-huh.
And when she did that, she traveled all over the world and interviewed women about their stories. I mean, initially she was interviewing them about vaginas. But,
okay. Well,
but she ended up hearing their stories
of course, we're all attached.
Abuse and mutilation.
Okay.
And,
oh my.
All kinds of horrid stories all over the world. So she wrote that, but she also really became this champion of ending violence and abuse. And because it was women and girls that she had interviewed, that was her focus.
Okay.
So she has some of my favorite TED Talks. She has one where she talks about the girl cell, and she talks about how she believes every man and every woman has this thing that she calls the girl cell, which is really our center of compassion and connection. And that she feels like, she feels like it is so immensely powerful that it scares people, and that our society's done everything they possibly can to suppress it and minimize it.
Everybody's society. Yeah.
And so, you hear, what does it mean to be a boy or a man? It means not to be a girl.
That's true.
What does it mean even to be a woman? Don't be a little girl.
Yeah.
And so, but she talks about if we could free this girl cell and, combine our natural compassion and intuition, all these things that everyone can tap into.
Everyone can tap into it.
Just how much healing and growth would be involved for the world.
Yes.
And so,
oh my gosh, yes. Oh, I'm going to look her up because I like that.
She's got some really great, inspiring stuff. And she's talked to thousands and thousands and thousands of people as she's formulated all of this.
Wow.
So I thought, I'm going to listen to something of hers. It's going to cheer me up.
Okay.
So I found some CNN interview or something that she was doing, and I was at home, and I just had her interview playing on my phone, and I was like scrubbing the kitchen counter or something, just kind of half paying attention. And I heard them say something about 1 billion rising, which I had never heard of. This was like the winter, like December of 2012. And something I heard her say all of a sudden, and that's why this year on Valentine's Day, we're going to ask everyone to take a stand. We're going to come together. We're going to leave our desks. We're going to leave our schools. We're going to come out of our homes, and all together we're going to dance.
Oh, how wonderful.
And it was like the record screeched, and I was like, well, what? What did she say? And she was talking about this 1 billion rising. Everyone's going to dance to take a stand to end violence against women and girls. And so,
yeah, sorry.
You're fine.
No, I'm trying to get this off, but go ahead.
Okay. So I snatched up my phone and I thought, what is this thing? I thought, knowing me, this was probably like a year ago, and I missed it, and I'll just read about whatever it was.
Yeah.
But this was December 2012, and she was talking about 1 billion rising was going to be in February of 2013.
Okay.
And so, the 1 billion stands for the 1 in 3. It's the statistical number of women and girls who will be violated or abused in their lifetime. So I put all this together in my head. I'm sitting there looking at my phone, and I had another aha moment. And I thought, we're doing it. I'm doing this.
Cool.
Whatever it is, I'm doing it. And I will tell you, I had never, ever put myself out there in this way. I had been privately studying all these issues.
Learning.
I teach my dance and Zumba classes where it's my job to get up and lead the class. I had given one TEDx talk about some of my theories with dance and and the life lessons that translate from the dance floor to our real lives.
Right.
But I had never put my heart out there in a way that was truly
But you
vulnerable.
had been studying all this stuff. It's almost like you're preparing.
Mm-hmm.
Did you ever think of that?
Yeah, I didn't realize it. I didn't realize it. But it was one gift, like you said, led to another. So I had this super weird moment. I can remember sitting on my couch and I wrote a Facebook post, which I had never written a post that quickly. I would always, stew about, is this helpful? Is this good? Should I say this? And I wrote a post and I said, hey, everyone, guess what we're doing on Valentine's Day? We're going to come together. We're going to take a stand to end violence against women and girls. And I just...
I think that's fabulous. That's fabulous. And so how has it grown now? I mean, in Fort Wayne alone.
It's really been wild. I thought when I posted that, I thought, you know what? So I have some good friends in Zumba and, maybe 10 of us or something will get together and we'll do a dance on Valentine's Day and we'll take our picture and we'll call it a day.
Right, right.
But when I posted that, 2 of my students right away said to me, count me in. Yeah. And it was like they were the ones who made it real.
Yes.
Yes. And yes. There's a really good, I think it's a TEDx plays a lot. There's a really good video about the first follower.
Oh, yes.
Who's that guy that did that?
Yes. I don't know who the guy was, but I remember it very much.
But
and then they say when 2 do it, when the first one does it, it's kind of odd. But then when the second one joins him, all of a sudden it becomes more of a reality. And then others always follow.
Yeah. So I really credit those friends of mine for making it real because they supported me. They were like, hey, go for it. This is a real thing. And something just started to pull me to where, every post that I put out there that I felt weird about, it's like, it wasn't about me anymore. It was like I had become sort of this vessel for just having to get the word out about this. And so little by little, another person was attracted to it, another person was attracted. And I thought I reached out to, I started planning an event for Valentine's Day. Okay. And I reached out to some people who I thought would be good dance leaders. I reached out to our local elected officials and they agreed to be involved, which was really cool.
That is very cool.
The YWCA helped me reach out to Tara Brantley in town.
Wonderful.
She's amazing.
Wonderful.
And it just, it grew and grew and grew. But I'll go back to no mud, no lotus, because it wasn't a story of all fairy dust and that it just all came together. Yeah. True. When I started to put myself out there, I remember I posted a few things in the event that I created. And I remember someone posting like, you're really irritating me or something on the event. And I thought,
really?
I thought, oh geez, I better not,
no.
I better not upset anybody.
Oh no.
Kind of thing. But it turns out, that is part of trekking through the muck. And I had to learn, you're not always going to make everyone happy. No. But I had a message that had to get out there.
Yes. And you have to weigh it against, I've gotten a few things too, since I've started on my mission and trying to get, and I've gotten two messages that, but usually I find if they're not, what I find is that they're usually the ones who are hurting the most, but they're not ready. And so I don't feel like I'm bothering them. I'm just reminding them that there's another way. And also you have to, what do they say? As you get older, especially, you cannot please everyone. You just can't. And I feel like if I'm touching all these other people, it's worth the effort.
Yeah. Yeah. And I have to go back to, what is my purpose?
What's your true voice?
Right. And I come from, and why am I doing this? And it's coming from a place of love and compassion and wanting to repair the world.
Making it a better place. Yes.
So.
All terrible things,
So. But I learned I couldn't go back into hiding.
No, you
just
can't.
because one person was upset.
No, and plus you had the awareness.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
It's very hard to go back into hiding. It's
Mm-hmm.
hard to go back after we've acted on our awareness or we've grown. Well, after you grow, you cannot go back. You just can't. It's impossible.
That's a really good point. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I was able to keep moving forward.
You have to.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
We started having some dance practices to get ready for our event on
cool.
Valentine's Day, and I thought, we'll get together like a couple of times, and I had put together some simple dances that we could use to lead the
that's fun.
crowd.
Yeah.
And same thing, I thought, a few of us will get together, practice this, and we'll be good. We'll call it a day.
Okay.
And so we had a dance practice, and I talked a little bit about the issues, and I handed out some information about early warning signs of abuse.
Good.
And,
Yes.
just talked a little bit about why we were there, and then we would dance together. And
Fun.
at the end of practice, everyone was like, "Are we doing this next week?"
Oh, wow. They wanted to
I
do it
started to
weekly.
say,
Oh, wow.
Okay, all right, we can do another one. And and then sure enough,
Wow.
a few more people would come to dance practice, and same thing, we would start talking about why we were there, and one by one, people started to say things like, "I went through abuse 20 years ago, and I've never said a word to anyone
Oh my
about
gosh.
it."
Oh, gives me goosebumps. Yeah.
Or someone else said, my mother called me to find out, to talk to me about what I was doing with 1 Billion Rising. She saw it on Facebook, and she's in her 70s, and just told me that she was raped,
Oh my gosh.
and she's never told anyone.
Oh my gosh. Look at
And
the secrets we keep.
my brother, my niece, it just started to one by one pop, pop, pop. And we started to sort of form this connection of kind of healing.
What do you think? I mean, I know groups that meet, and it takes forever for people to open up. In fact, sometimes they don't even open up.
Mm-hmm.
But what made the people start to open up? Have you thought about that? What is the special ingredient that started this whole reaction?
I think it was a couple of things. I really think there is something to movement
Mm-hmm.
and music and art. They're intangible things, but we were born to move. I mean, you turn on music and have a group of toddlers,
Yes.
and they're moving
Every
to it.
minute.
They're moving. They don't
Yeah.
tell you they're doing it wrong.
No.
They don't
No.
tell you they can't dance.
Right.
They move.
They do.
And I believe there's something very primal about getting in touch with that movement. And it goes back to kind of connection. And we
Right.
start to sort of feel parts of ourselves that we've tried to bury or kind of seal over in some way.
I think so. And when they say mind, body, spirit,
Mm-hmm.
and it really does. And I think when you dance, it brings you up to a vibration. And if you have stuff that you're hiding and stuff that hurts, it can't stay
Mm-hmm.
because you are raising yourself up and you feel good. You feel physically good. And there's all scientific and biological reasons why you start feeling good.
Mm-hmm.
But you are feeling so good. And then you've got this like stuff just in your gut.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And your body wants to expel it. And so it starts to come out. I really do think that's what happens.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree.
So that's pretty cool. Now, I know where you want to go, but I also know you're starting a program with this movement. Do you want to tell a little bit about it?
I am, and
Because I think it's so
actually,
cool.
There's another aha moment there when I think about it. So we kept on. 1 Billion Rising happened that year. It was a phenomenal experience. We had, I think, almost 600 people that first year.
600. That's very good.
And it brought a lot of us together, and we decided to keep it going throughout the year. I didn't really know. I was exhausted.
I bet you were. Yeah,
and
that's a lot of planning.
Didn't know if the global movement was going to continue or not,
Right.
but we kept meeting like once a month, kind of I called it our dance crew. And I continued doing the work on my own and my own research and everything. And it was probably about 9 months later.
Wow. That's a long time.
And I was at work one day and I was just minding my own business, doing my work, doing my job. And this little like voice in my head, actually I remember I was walking in the hallway, like to the restrooms and water fountain. And this voice in my head said, I got to draw something.
Cool.
And I am not an artist and I don't draw.
Neither am I, yeah.
And nothing ever tells me it needs to draw ever. Like, no, that's not normal.
That's better. Yeah.
And so I was like, I've been working on self-compassion and I was like, okay, we're at work right now.
Yeah.
We can draw this later.
Okay.
And it kept coming back, like I got back to my desk and this voice was like, no, I need to draw something now.
Wow.
And I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
So I took out a pen and paper and it was this sort of conglomerate of words that sort of came out in a pyramid shape.
Really?
And I just sort of muddled it over for, matter of, I don't really know how long, days or something like that. And kept working on it in my journal in the evenings.
So it was important.
And it became this thing, basically this model for the other side of violence and abuse. So
Which is?
looking at what the building blocks actually are of a healthy dynamic.
Cool.
And I had been thinking that I really want to work on the preventative side of the issue.
Oh my gosh, yes.
And this all sort of came together for me. And so I just slowly started working with it and kind of, just manipulating it. And like I said, I'm not an artist. I really didn't know what to do with it.
But still.
But it kind of involved all these concepts that we're talking about, starting with the self.
Mm-hmm.
It incorporated, one of the stages in my model is dancing.
Right. Yes, yes.
And then the top stage I call magic. And I realized though it's a constant movement. It's a constant cycle.
Right.
So even when you reach magic or enlightenment or unfolding or whatever you call it, you don't just kick back and go, I'm good. I mean, and you are good and it's wonderful and there's gratitude and joy throughout every day.
You have to keep growing.
But you have to keep moving. Mm-hmm. So and keep investing. So so I ended up meeting, actually not in a parking lot a few months later. I met someone who is a graphic artist.
Oh wow.
And we ended up going to lunch and
putting it together.
And
wow.
A couple months later I said, I'm actually looking for someone. Do you know someone who does like side gigs or something? And told him what it was and he said, I would totally do that. I would totally work on that.
Wow.
And
Isn't it funny when we do follow the voice, the awareness, you know how it goes. It just, things start to fall more or less right in place.
Yeah, and
to make it happen.
Mm-hmm. And you have to be, you have to be doing the work. When I was surrounding myself with such a shell, I didn't really.
Well, you shut off. You shut everything off. Mm-hmm. You're in darkness. That's the difference between dark and light. Mm-hmm. And when we were saying, that it's very true. When you are already, I hear some people who have reached a certain point and they feel that that's all there is. They feel they're doing their gratitude. They feel that they're feeling good. But there's a saying, and I believe in, this is one I follow. The soul is always for greater expansion and expression.
I like that.
And when we stop that soul, when we stop trying to express and expand, and it's always for that, that's the only way it keeps going, then we start falling back.
Mm-hmm.
So that's something I live by. So I'm always thinking I have to keep learning and I have to keep growing because my soul wants to further expand and express itself.
I love that. Yeah, it's kind of always. I remember one of the trips I took during this whole kind of period of time. I went to Colorado and spent some time with this really fantastic group of people. But I remember one person saying to me, "What I love about this group is that everyone is on an ascension here."
Wow.
And during that time, I went on these long solo hikes, and it was kind of like manifesting exactly what you said. On the hike, I wanted to get to the top of the thing, and I just kept looking up, like, how do I get there? How's the top of this thing? And I had no water. My cell phone died, but I'm like, I gotta get to the top.
Right.
And I had that moment that I think is so common, the whole it's about the journey thing.
It is about the
journey.
journey.
I just realized, like, there really was no top thing, but just every step of the way I continued ascending. There was always another level. There was always another place to get to. And I think exactly what you're saying.
That's our journey in life.
And there's so much, and it's so exciting because it's our human potential.
It is.
So it's not that doing this work is like being on a gerbil wheel.
No.
But it's this constant unfolding and ascension and
growing.
Just beauty.
Yes, it's very true. So now what happened when you started, you got the triangle and it's all now looking very nice and because you got the graphic artist getting it together. So what happened from there?
So it continued to kind of pull me, just like that voice that said it had to draw something.
Right.
And I realized this is a message that I need to get out there. And actually the triangle, kind of going back to that original quote, it's now turned into it kind of looks like a rosebud.
Oh, perfect.
And that the mission that you had mentioned, the heal, empower, and ignite, that was something that had sort of popped in my head around that time. And the heal, empower, ignite are kind of the three big levels.
Yeah.
So
I can just see it. I can see the flower. Just you heal, and the flower the bud starts to open. That's very cool.
Thank
I
you.
like that. Mm-hmm.
So I'm actually in the process of incorporating and becoming, like, I use the word legitimate a lot, but actually doing this work on the side really as much as I can. So I've been, I've called it the Rose Model for Healthy Relationships. And
very cool.
What it's really all about is creating the love that sets us free.
Isn't that cool? Yeah, that's a very, very cool mission. And, well, taking that love, love does set us free. I mean, it is. It's the truth. It's what we're about. Mm-hmm. We are about love.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's
it's who we are.
Yeah, compassion and love.
Mm-hmm. So I've really enjoyed
the girl factor, the girl cell.
The girl cell, right?
Yeah, yeah, it is.
And I really want to emphasize that this is not just about women and girls
not
at all. This is a human issue, and that I speak to just as many men as I do women and girls. Absolutely.
No, it's humanity. It really is humanity.
Absolutely. So, so I've been speaking to groups of teens and adults and really enjoying
Just out of curiosity now, when you're speaking to teens, I'm always fascinated with this realm. What kind of response are you getting?
It's so many things. I have so many emotions from that question. It's beautiful. It's heart-wrenching. It's difficult.
Why is it difficult?
It's difficult to hear their stories. It's difficult to hear just how much is out there for human beings to overcome.
Yes.
I'm really getting I've been able to connect with a lot of teens. I think maybe I was surprised about
Oh, I
how
think
much
they want to talk. They do.
They do. And I find, you know, when you're able to establish kind of a rapport, and you establish kind of a circle of empathy, and that it's okay to share, that they do, you know, not only during the talk they'll come up to me afterwards and share stories that they might not have shared. They have maybe a new level of awareness about what their friends are going through, and that, you know, types of treatment that are not okay.
And also to show more compassion with each other.
Yeah.
Which is a big giant plus right there. Yeah.
It is. So it's really, you know, it's wow. I mean, I've heard some really difficult stories.
I bet you have.
Lately.
Yeah.
But I think, I just feel like there's nothing more important that I could be doing in my spare time than talking about this, because there's so much that we hide. There's so many taboo topics. I mean, I talked to a group of teen girls recently. It was the first time I really talked about sexuality and physical intimacy, and it was terrifying.
Was it?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
But I was glad to get that first experience out of the way. I learned a lot. They learned a lot, and this is part of who we are. It's not a part that we need to be made to feel bad about.
Not at all. Not at all. I have a question for you though, because I've thought a lot about this. Where did things start to get? I mean, in all the studying you've done, how do I want to phrase this? Where did it start to just kind of go awry? Where humanity felt that we had to control another's sex, or why? What? And I know that's a humongous question, but you've done a lot of studying, and I mean, and I'm not saying this is in gold, but what do you think? What do you think kind of just, what is, I don't know, me it's power, but what, you agree?
I do. I kind of go back to what we were talking about with suppressing that girl cell, but I think, you know, isn't it a Marianne Williamson quote about our greatest fear is not, you know, our deficiencies. It's about that we're powerful beyond measure.
Yes.
And I think that as people unfold, it can be threatening to people who aren't there yet. I used to be afraid of the word power. I didn't think it applied to me.
Really?
I didn't think it applied to me.
I didn't think it applied to me either.
And I didn't
That's
see.
true.
I didn't see.
Power,
and
I thought was evil, actually.
I did too. I associated it with the negative. And
I did too.
I think it was another one of my coaches that I had a conversation about with this. But it was that power. It's just like fire, basically. Like it can be used for good or bad. It can be used to light a whole room.
That's right.
No, or it can be misused. So that, of course, there's responsibility with it. But I think repressing all of this started by just at some point we develop this really dangerous belief that who we are is not okay.
I think you're right.
And then we can project that on other people, and then seeing people who are more and more okay with themselves, we can find that threatening.
Yeah.
I know I've had relationships where, you know, maybe I was actually at a point of depression when I got into the relationship. And then as I started to unfold, I kind of sensed this feeling like he actually liked me a lot better.
Well, there's a reason
when I
for
was
that.
depressed.
Yeah, because when we're in one, there's a reason for that, because we will draw either when we're in a state, you know, we will draw the people to us like that like draws like, but it's actually a vibrational thing. You will draw the people that either will teach you something that you need for a reason, or that are like you, or you're giving them something too. So yeah, I'm not surprised. And a lot of people don't like it when you outgrow them. That's why we say, as you start to come to more awarenesses, and as you start to help work on yourself, it's not that you want to avoid people, but people will start falling away, because they don't understand, and they don't want to understand. They're not there. They're not ready.
And that's okay. And from a place
right.
of love and compassion, I wish everyone,
me
on
too.
their paths.
I do too. All because it doesn't mean that they won't be ready, or it doesn't mean that they have their own growth.
Sure.
It's all right, but it's just your personal growth brings you to different places.
Absolutely. So I really think it starts with the self, with our own sense of divine worth.
Yes. And
really cultivating the self-compassion to kind of develop this okayness, so that we can then give that okayness to all the other people that we connect with.
That's right, because you can't give what you don't have. You have to develop it. Yeah. Oh, very cool.
So, and it's going to take a lot. There are a lot of barriers in our way, but I fiercely believe that every single conversation like this that we have will touch something.
It does. And I think that I really do think it's happening younger and younger. Just like the teens want to talk. And from the teens you touched, that's going to plant seeds. And the seeds will grow, because they can't help but not. Once you have that awareness, you start thinking, why don't I value myself? I have a voice.
Right.
I'm okay.
Yeah.
And start, and before you know it, it'll just start happening. And the ones who do value themselves, do know they have a voice, suddenly won't be in the situations where somebody's trying to dominate them, because they can't be dominated. They have that awareness. See the good you're doing?
Thank you. As are you.
Well, thank you. But it's just cool, because if you can reach, especially girls. It's funny, I was talking to a friend of mine, and she was talking about the workplace, and she saw this, she works in a big office, and there's this girl who's like 24, something like that, and she sees herself in this girl, because the girl is very shy, and she tends to be shy. And there's this older gentleman who has taken her under his wing, but not necessarily in a good way. And he's just always nagging her. He's always doing, he's just won't leave her alone. And she sees the girl kind of shrinking back. And I told her, I said, well, can you, why don't you get closer to the girl and kind of mentor her? And, and say, you don't have to succumb to this, and it's not your fault. And give her the bolster, because a lot of girls in that 20 range right now, it's a very funny time right now, because things are changing, and there are more people that are understanding this. But they're not young enough where they're getting it like schools and stuff. They're in the workplace. And I remember when I was 20, do you know how many sexual harassment places I was in with all the jobs I took?
I can remember being called baby at my first job.
I remember this. I remember just, I won't even say some of the comments that were said. And when I reported it, it was just, boys are boys. I got that. And this was not the 50s. Or not the 60s. This was the 90s, and I was just amazed. And these women are in a very weird place for them in the 20s, and the girls who are 20-year-olds. Yeah. Because nobody's reaching them quite yet.
I do. I love that you recommended to your friend to reach out. And I think, for me anyway, sometimes that was a matter of getting over my own stuff. Like there were a couple of girls
thinking we have to conform.
Yeah, and just thinking that that maybe we don't have anything to offer a younger woman or something.
Yeah, that's true too. Yes, very much so.
There were a couple of girls who did 1 Billion Rising me the first year who were, I think they were graduating high school at the time. And they're gorgeous, just vibrant,
that's
just
cool.
amazing young ladies. And as I started to talk to them, I realized that I was intimidated, thinking like, I'm not as cool as they are, like, why would they want to talk to me?
Oh, man.
But the more I shed my own stuff and came from a place of, this is all about love and connection, and I can learn from them, they can learn from me. I did start to mentor them.
Wow.
And just as I have a mentor who's about that same amount of years older than I am.
Right.
And realizing the value in that, I was able to get over myself and establish this connection with them.
Very cool.
And it turns out, we are wonderful friends. We think so highly of each other. And they're at college now, starting groups for other groups of young women and things.
The ripple effect.
Mm-hmm.
Isn't that fabulous?
Yeah. But for me, it started with self-compassion. It started with, I am okay enough to reach out and make this connection.
Yep. And I have something important to say and to teach.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And learn.
Always learn.
Yeah.
We're always learning.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Oh, Lori, I want to thank you so much.
You
That
are
was
welcome.
an awesome interview. And for everyone, I'm hoping that Lori touched you and gets you moving on your moments of awareness and growing. It's just phenomenal. And to get involved and to teach. So anyway, this is Conversations with Alena, and I thank you so very much for joining me. If you want to get hold of Lori for anything, I did her salsa classes. I adore them. But how can they get hold of you? An email or something, or a website?
Yeah, I have a Facebook page now for my work that I'm doing. So
Cool.
It's Lori Rose. So anyone can get connected through that. I don't have a website yet.
It's coming. It's coming. Yeah. But the Facebook is good. You can add your comments of what you've heard today, and that would be fantastic. And if you want to hear any more from me, it's alenachapman.com. Alena at alenachapman.com too. And just have an awesome, awesome day. Thank you very much.